Should you try and copy a tour player's golf swing? Is your body even capable of making the moves you were trying to? Well, in this video, you'll learn from PGA Tour coach Chris Mayson and finally know the answer. Let's get stuck in. So that shot there, Chris, matched form and function together. But what is most important when it comes to striking a golf ball, mate? It is all about the function of it, right?
Absolutely.
Are you striking the ground in the right spot? Is your club face aiming in the direction of your target? And are you striking somewhere near the center of the golf club, right? And when we're looking at players working to improve their swing, we tend to see that they're going to try and imitate or look like a tour player.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of players out there with physical mobility limitations. They might have injuries, or simply as time has gone on, they've sat at a desk too long and they can't move as well.
Yes.
Right? So when it comes to a player that might be, for example, trying to improve their distance, hit better golf shots, should every player out there be trying to imitate a tour pro at the moment of impact, or is there another way?
I mean, these guys are professional athletes who've been doing this their whole life. They hit millions and millions of golf balls, and they've obviously got the best physical trainers and masseuses on their team in order to make sure that they stay healthy and functional in order to be able to do this sort of very one-sided sport. So you shouldn't necessarily be trying to get into the exact angles unless you know that you have the mobility and flexibility for it.
Yeah.
So a lot of players come to me with pretty bad back issues just because they've overworked their body. Maybe they're very, very tight in their hips, which is putting some pressure on their back. Maybe their glutes are weak, whatever that is. But now obviously the back is now hurting, and then it's affecting not only their ability to swing properly, but obviously they're in pain and can't even play golf.
Yeah, for sure. So let's say that I'm a player and I've got a sore back, and I keep compounding the issue because I'm really working hard on getting rotated at the moment of impact. I know that professional golfers on average have their hips about 30 degrees open, their shoulders about 10, the handle's leaning forward, everything looks really good. But as soon as I try and do that, I'm hitting it around my left ankle because I can't get the sequencing of the upper and lower body, right? What could that player do in terms of an easy to understand concept and also drill to learn how to still hit great shots without being as athletic?
I think as soon as the back issues start to come, it's very important to understand what it is in your golf swing that's causing those back issues. So a lot of players I see are so tight that they're unable to rotate. The hips slide away from the target, the spine gets stuck, and then because the hips and lower body is stuck, the spine then tries to get that little extra rotation on the back, and that puts a lot of pressure. Now on the downswing, the only place you're going is over the top. So now you'll try and then slide the other way in order to get the club back online, and now the back's restricted again. So
not to mention that's happening in less than a second, the downswing 0.25 of a second as well. So that's a lot of manipulation, right?
Exactly, and a lot of pressure on the back. So what you're trying to do on the backswing is make sure your hips rotate as much as possible on the backswing. This is that trail knee is going to then extend quite considerably on the backswing. That's going to allow the spine to rotate more without putting pressure on it. The spine will stay deep within the pelvis without getting stuck in that sort of that lower thoracic area there. So the more you can let this right leg extend, that's going to allow the hips to turn, which is going to allow the spine to turn and then not create so much pressure on the spine. Now on the downswing, you've already created more shallows.
More room.
Right? So you've got more room to the inside. So then you can pivot and keep the spine within the pelvis as opposed to slide and then put even more pressure.
And I think one of the coolest little party tricks that I know to demonstrate the importance of creating room in the backswing, not necessarily getting so fixated on getting all tight and coiled and then trying to rotate, is if you've got a bit of trust there, Chris, but if I face my body completely to the camera, right, and I set up with the club behind the golf ball, I can hit a tight little draw that probably goes about 150 yards with this 8-iron.
Nice.
Without any excessive rotation on the way through. So one of the biggest keys here is understanding that you don't need to get into this super right side bended, athletic open position to hit good golf shots. You're going to give yourself room, make sure you're not putting your body under stress, and then actually learn how to throw that energy of the golf club into the ball. Just because you hear about keeping the face square to your spine angle on the way through, there's so many variables that are needed for the player to be able to put themselves in a position to accommodate that.
Yeah, that's great.
So in terms of now we've created a backswing which is not going to put any pressure on the body, The downswing feel, I said just then, Chris, about the kind of throw of the energy of the golf club.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you use with the players?
Not necessarily. Like, I'm trying to make the backswing much more efficient so that they don't have to make manipulations on the downswing, right? So if you're having a hard time rotating, like you could even, I've had players drop their right foot back and turn the right toe out. That's going to allow more rotation on the backswing in order to get the club to the inside.
To let that golf club release relative to their body's mobility. If
Yeah.
they're super flexible, they might be able to hold the face off a little bit more, maybe
Yeah.
control that overdraw, but there is absolutely nothing wrong, guys, of seeing the club face turn over a lot and hit tight little draws as a result of just doing that,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah. And I used to study the golf swing, I still do, but in the early 2000s, you had VJ and Tiger who would throw it a lot,
Yeah.
right? And they'd kind of stall a little bit and square the face up that way. We're seeing a little bit more of a body release kind of technique on tour now, but that doesn't mean that you necessarily need to be able to do that. These guys are better athletes with more function in their swing anyway. So there's nothing wrong with just letting that club go and then working within your mobility and flexibility.
Yeah, and you heard it right there. Chris teaches, how many tour players, Chris?
25 right now, probably.
25 tour players who would always be more so on that spectrum of trying to keep the club face a little bit more passive through the moment of impact, but it's time and place, mobility, and what you're trying to achieve relative to your expectations. And for most players out there, the ball only cares, well, for every player out there, the ball only cares about one thing. That's how that golf club is delivered to the ball. Let's give ourselves some more room in the backswing to allow that golf club to come in and create effortless power.